Hello, friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest for you. His name is Doug Crandall. Doug is a former leadership professor at West Point who's helped develop executives at Walmart, Division I athletes, and our nation's military leaders. In his new book, he's built a framework on two forces that shape every interaction: what we expect of others and how our communication lands. Those two forces produce four leadership instincts, which he's going to teach us about: builder, driver, cheerleader, and belittler. Most leadership books tell you what great leaders do. Instead, Doug's new book, Building or Diminishing, asks you to examine what archetype you are and then shows you how to change. Doug backs up his leadership philosophy with science, drawing on research into neuroplasticity, the Pygmalion effect, expectancy theory, and what a phone placed face down on the table can do to a conversation, all in service of helping people better understand and develop human beings. I love it. Welcome to the podcast, Doug. I'm delighted to
Thanks,
have
Julie.
you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, if people listen to me often, they know that leadership is one of my favorite things. So I'm really excited to talk to you and hear about all the things in your book. So this will be fun for me.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, and it affects so many areas of our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first question I always ask everyone on my podcast is to tell me their story. So you can tell me as much or as little as you want, start wherever you want, but just kind of give us an idea of how you got to where you are today.
yeah, big part of my story is the United States Military Academy there in West Point, New York, and
Awesome.
I grew up with my dad had gone there. He graduated in 1955, and he grew up during the Depression. So West Point was really life-changing for him. He had a single mom who was actually a teacher in a single room schoolhouse. She had all the kids from like kindergarten through sixth grade, including him and his brother and sister. I remember him talking about being able to get one pair of shoes a year. This was 1937, 1938. And he enlisted in the Marines. It's not a very common path, but he went from being an enlisted Marine to getting the opportunity to go to West Point, which
Wow.
commissions officers for the Army. And and so just as I grew up, I heard about it. I was not alive while my dad was in the Army because he had gotten out after his initial service commitment. And I was the youngest of five kids. But later kind of learned my mom's dad also went there, and he died trying to escape from a Japanese prison ship in the Pacific
Oh,
Theater in
wow.
World War II. Climbed through a small porthole in a bathroom and was actually shot as he was trying to swim away
Oh, man.
from that. And so yeah, that's just kind of part of my history. And so I ended up going to West Point out of high school. Actually, super homesick. I grew up in the same house my whole life, all the way across the country in Bellevue, Washington. I had a girlfriend I started dating when I was 16, who is my wife. We've been together 38
Oh,
years.
wow. That's
I
great.
miss her a ton. Yeah, all kinds of people telling me like, don't leave West Point for a girl, um,
Right.
and I understand that advice 100%, but it wasn't just that. So I left after a year, actually. Not a very common path. I went to the University of Washington and then reapplied and was really fortunate to get back into West Point.
Wow.
And because I had completed the first year in good standing, I got to pick up where I left off. So I went from
Nice.
class of 1994 to 1995. And then that took me really into applying to teach at West Point 5 years later. And kind of a stroke of good luck. And I tell the story in the beginning of the book about interviewing with two different academic departments and just how different each one of those experiences made me feel about like my own capability. And chose the leadership department, which was a little bit of a surprise. It was almost like my backup when I interviewed, and that changed my life. I mean, I just fell in love with teaching, exploring leadership with people in classrooms, and learned a ton there about how we develop as leaders by making meaning of our own experiences. I did that for 5 years. I ended up getting out of the Army, worked for Amazon for a brief stint, and just wasn't a cultural fit either way, probably. I
You
love
didn't like that.
Amazon. Yeah, I mean, I'm Prime member and been ordering stuff, and if I still had my Amazon stock, I'd probably could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah,
But
you'd be a rich person, right?
yeah, but it just wasn't a fit. And so I got out. Just really started freelancing and picked up teaching again. Was really fortunate to spend 7 years working with Walmart as a contractor, building and delivering a high potential leadership program there. That my second home was Bentonville, Arkansas, this DoubleTree hotel. So that has carried me really to here, where I'm part of a team called the Referent Group, a small team. We develop leaders. A lot of the work we do is in healthcare. I work with a friend from West Point who we were youth group leaders together at our time there in college, and just have stayed close friends and travel a lot. I'm a huge sports fan. Got four adult kids and one 3-year-old granddaughter, and we're
Awesome.
back living in the house my wife grew up in back in Bellevue, Washington, which has been in our family for her family for over 100 years. So,
That's so cool. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I don't know how much you know about veterinarians, but there is a lot of I guess, interest in leadership because many of our businesses are small and we're in leadership positions often because we're the veterinarians. And even if we don't own the practice, we're kind of looked at as leaders for the rest of the
hmm
team.
yeah,
So I would love you to teach us about these concepts because you said when I read your introduction that there are archetypes of leaders. So I would love to hear about that if you can teach us about that.
you bet, Julian. I would 100% affirm what you just said. I think when we teach leadership, we actually just define leadership as you're a leader if people are following you. And
Mm,
we go a little bit deeper into that, but don't like to get
absolutely.
elaborate with it and
Right.
attach outcomes to it or anything. And I
So many
think,
labels.
yeah, and like lots of people have this experience, but we lost a couple of pets within 6 months, two different dogs about 7 years ago, and you go and it's super hard, and you're getting them checked out and examined,
Mm,
and just
terrible.
like a doctor, you're relying on the advice of your veterinarian, and that
Mhm.
bedside manner matters. And so what I love about this book, it's called Building or Diminishing. It's the fourth one I've been part of. And really, the first one that I feel like anyone could pick up and read. And I mean anyone, from a 14-year-old to, I have a friend, we send it out to kind of our Christmas list that we send stuff out to. And one of
Yeah.
my high school friends is a second grade teacher down in California. And Amy was just texting me saying she's in charge of professional development for her school. And she had bought it for all her teachers.
Nice.
And and so it came from this simple premise that I had been just exploring in my own mind. It had just kind of been kicking around in my head. Really, I would say in relation to our youngest son, who's kind of spent the last 3 years with my wife and I at home as his siblings had moved out and gone to college. And I just started asking myself as I was talking to him, is like what I'm saying to him, building him, or is it diminishing him? And if it's diminishing him, making him feel less valued or less confident, like why would I say it? For
Right.
what reason? And that does not mean that we don't then have to hold people accountable and push them to achieve excellence. But our words should be in service of that and not just frustration or like, what are you doing? Or like, why are you getting up so late?
Yeah.
Or any of these things that happen. So that question just started kicking around in my mind all the time. Am I building or diminishing? I threw it up on a slide in a program we were teaching one day, and it really seemed to resonate. Like it just sort of
Yeah.
stuck. And then we ended up building kind of a separate lesson, keynote talk out of it. And we had one doctor actually in a hospital we were teaching at come up at the end of a 6 month program. And we typically ask people to reflect on like what the two or three biggest takeaways they have are. And he said that question like was the number one thing he's taken away from a program that I've been teaching in some ways for 2 decades. And this was just a new thing. And he said, I walk into work every day now and I just tell myself, build your nurses, don't diminish them. Like literally as I'm going up the stairs, I've tied it to that action,
Right.
and I ask
Yeah.
myself when I'm saying things. So that's kind of the core of the book. These archetypes, Julie. I'll be honest, like I'm not big on labels, and we actually say in the book like
Well,
this is
you kind
not
of
a,
have to package it somehow, right?
exactly, you got it
Mhm.
right. Like, and people like
Yeah.
that, and some people think that way. And I say in the book, like this is not intended to put you in a box. It's really a reflective tool.
Right.
And it combines everything I'm talking about, whether our communication is building, like on the far right, or diminishing on the far left, kind of in the middle, I'm neutral. And it actually came along as we were doing the keynotes. I was really just focused on communication and how our communication was landing with people, whether I was nonverbal. I mean, Julie, even things like how long it takes us to answer a text. I mean, not everybody's like me, but I'm somewhat neurotic. And if someone doesn't answer my text for a day, I wonder if I did something to them.
You
It's
start
kind
to
of
imagine that they don't like you or something.
totally, yeah, yeah. And then as a leader, we have this outsized impact on people because they are wondering what we're thinking about their
Mm.
performance or how they're doing. So I was really focused on that, and it felt a little soft. I'll be honest, we teach CFOs and orthopedic surgeons,
Right,
and I wanted something that brought it together. So we ended up layering in expectations of excellence, like just the idea that we are going to be the best, that I expect excellence, I expect us to be world class, whatever it might be. And what do you expect about like individual people, like the way you think about people you lead, what do you expect of them? And so if you have high expectations and expect them to achieve greatness, and you have building communication, then we call that a builder. And that's the aspiration. And I share multiple times in the book that I'm there in maybe like a small fraction of my life in certain parts, but as I look back at my history of a leader, I'm still aspiring to that. And it's written through that. In the top left, we have a driver. And this is a lot of people are familiar with this. I expect excellence. I think you can do great things. We're going to be the best, but I don't share very often that I believe in you or that you're doing a good job or build you up. I just kind of expect you to get the job done. You don't need me to be building you up all the time. Uh, and that's a driver. We ask people to reflect on, excuse me, that quadrant and maybe what it looks like to go from there to just shifting your communication without lowering expectations. The bottom right is a cheerleader. And that is someone that I'm real familiar with this, who's great at relationships, building other people, building their confidence, but often doesn't have the tough conversation because you're worried about how you might make the person feel, that you might demotivate them by giving them tough feedback. You
right,
just don't want to have the conversation. There's some good reasons we're cheerleaders, like we don't want to be hypocrites. So how can I tell you this if I didn't do it yesterday?
right,
But the cheerleader ends up potentially kind of getting mediocrity at times because you're not expecting excellence and you're kind of telling
right.
people everything's good. And then the bottom left is the belittler, which we don't spend a ton of time on, but we've all kind of probably been there in some fashion. We've experienced a toxic leader. I say I was that myself at certain points when I was feeling pressure, but I don't think you're very good, and I tell you that, and there's not no one's aspiring to that box, but there
Right.
are plenty of people who are there, so maybe it's a wake up call to like how am I belittling or in situations. So those are the four archetypes, and then we dig into those um, and really, I think I've gotten a lot of feedback, like text messages, direct messages, people who are reading the book, and they're kind of seeing themselves in either the driver or the cheerleader, and what do I need to do to shift to get to to aspire to builder.
Okay, so that's a good question then, I guess. If we see ourselves in one of those boxes, I could see myself when I was a leader somewhere between the driver and the cheerleader because I
Yeah.
was like, just get your work done, but I also was one of those people that like to have fun and talk people up. So if you see yourself in one of those other types and you want to become a better leader, what would you say would be something that you could work on or think about? Like what do you advise people to do when you're talking to them about becoming a better leader?
Yeah, we share different steps and like three kind of common things from each one in the book.
Okay.
Things that cause us to be a cheerleader rather than a builder. But it's, the book, it's a little different than other leadership books. And I did this on purpose in the sense that it's really not telling you how to lead. It's getting you to reflect, like, so that just getting you to see
To
where
like
am
look
I?
at yourself and
Yeah,
try to figure
yeah.
yourself out. Okay,
And
that makes
then
all kinds of sense.
I mean, there aren't as potentially as many different reasons as there are people on the planet, but we all have different things that are holding us back.
Right.
And I think what I've seen from people providing feedback and what I see myself, like this, just writing this and thinking about it has made me better. Um, but I know that, I mean, one thing, for instance, I truly just go back to that building or diminishing question a lot, and I say a lot fewer things than I used to. I mean, I just don't say it if it's not going to be helpful.
It's not going to build
Um,
someone up.
Yep. And
Yeah.
there's a whole section in the book on just how we think. because it really what we say starts with how we think about a particular person. And truly, how do I
Sure.
rewire my brain about this person so I'm looking for the good things? And I recognize that for the last 18 months, I've just gotten into this rut of expecting this person to fail or thinking that they have ulterior motives or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And we just explore the fact that we don't know other people's intentions. So, really, a book designed to help people reflect and with self-awareness and then kind of chart their own course for how they fix the things that they found within themselves.
Yeah, that's really interesting because on this podcast and with a lot of the work I do, I talk a lot about the first step is becoming aware of
Mm,
what's going on in you and how you're thinking. And so for you to say that you have to be aware of what kind of leader you are and how you approach things, and then also looking at the people that are working for you and trying to be more open, maybe, to their
yeah,
own style, their own personality. I think that is something that really good leaders and people that are aspiring to be good leaders have to get good at. They have to get good at understanding their own personality, how they do things, what they do wrong, and then looking at the other people and not expecting them all to be the same.
absolutely. Yeah, and we I tell a short story in the book. We use it a lot when we teach. It's taken from the television show Parks and Rec, which I
Oh, I just started watching that because my son keeps telling me, Mom, you'd love that so much. You need to watch it. So I've been watching it, but I haven't seen it all.
yeah, it's a pretty good job.
It's
Unfortunately, won't go
funny.
over the spoiler alert, but I think it's like in the third season. Um, Amy Poehler's character. It loves birthdays, and Ron Swanson's birthday is coming up, and he hates birthdays. In fact, he tried to hide it from people for years, and somehow they found it. And she typically throw these huge parties, and so she's got different people kind of messing with him, telling him there's going to be a bouncy house and a surprise and all kinds of people and
Oh,
face
wow.
painting.
And he's
And
miserable.
yeah, he's like dreading it. And finally it comes to like his birthday and he says, let's get this over with. She takes him to this room and he kind of braces as she opens the door. And it's just this dimly lit room with a steak dinner and the
Aw,
bridge on the river Kauai's on the TV. And he's got scotch. He's got all the things that she knows that he loves. Leslie Knope is her character's name. And in the end, the line that she says is, "Why would I throw Ron Swanson and Ann Perkins' party?" And Ann Perkins being her other friend who does love this
right.
stuff. And
Yeah.
it's a really sticky example that we use of just knowing the people you lead, and
Knowing
that
your people. Yeah.
for sure. And I use that example with a group of cadets I was teaching virtually as a guest several years ago, and one of them said like she gave him the leadership he needed, not the leadership she wanted to give. And it's just exact kind of sums up everything you're saying in terms of knowing our people and what each person needs.
Right. And being open to all of that. And I think we always try to think that people all should do the same, be the
Yeah,
same. And I think that if you're leading an organization, you do need a variety. Like in a veterinary
absolutely.
hospital, you need some introverts, you need some people pleasers, you need some, directors, like that. You need like that variety of people in order to make it a really good team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, talk to me when I read this in the introduction about a phone placed face down on a table, what that can do to a conversation. So, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, share that in
Love that idea.
a chapter that's all about presence and distraction and how even just our presence builds and being distracted diminishes. And I know for so many of the illustrations, I tried to not overuse them, but I kept going back to things as a parent that I would do. And if my kids were telling me a story and I'm doing something else, and they just start to realize Dad got something more important than me.
Checked out.
There's
Yeah.
there's a bunch of different peer-reviewed papers on this idea that just a phone on a table requires cognitive load on our part because we are subconsciously wondering what's going on with the phone. I mean,
Mm.
we can get that. It makes intuitive sense if we're talking about like the buzz of a text, but even just the phone there, the research
It's
shows that
within reach, like where
yeah,
you could
within
reach it.
reach, I have to fight the urge to reach it. So
Hmm.
I am part of my cognitive capacity is being taken up not doing that while I am listening to you. And so if you've got six phones on a table with six people having a discussion, the social connection goes down. And so
Interesting.
it's it's not even like in its purest form of giving people all your presence so that they feel more valued. Just putting your phone away is something that's a simple but valuable step.
Yeah. Yeah. When I ran my practice, I made everyone keep their phones in their lockers because we had
Mm,
lockers and I didn't want it on their body. And
yeah,
now it's not as practical because a lot of people use it in their work, you know.
sure.
But I would just try to keep them out of work because I didn't like that when the clients had them either. When the clients
Yeah,
had them in their hand, then they weren't listening to us,
sure. Yeah.
and it was frustrating. So, tell me a little bit more about your philosophy on maybe small business leadership and where you see the issues that come in for maybe new leaders, people that haven't done much of it before. A lot of my veterinary clients, that's what they're struggling with. They get out of vet school and now they're vets
Mhm.
and now they're expected to be a leader and they've
Yeah.
never had to do that before. Like, do you have any advice or thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, um, with every program we do, it's just something I've come to believe over a couple of decades. Like the most important thing, first step is just deciding what your core values are. Like, what do you believe and why do you believe it? If you're running a vet practice, like we are, if you believe like customer service is paramount, then just, hey, we are going to treat customers this way or with patients this way. We're going to smile. We're going to treat them with dignity. Uh, so whatever, and then where does that come from? So that as people come in, you can share a story about why this is so important to you. So we do exercises that just get people thinking about what they believe and why they believe it, and then recommend that they limit those core values to just four or five things. That's based on some of the work by a gentleman named Jim Collins and his colleague Jerry Porras years ago in a book called Built to Last, but looking at companies that just
Mhm.
grew and sustained and they all had just a
They
small
do it.
set of core values that drove behaviors. And making that clear, making those expectations clear, not tolerating anything that deviates from those cultural norms, so people know what they're getting. But then with everything else that are outside of those, as we talked about earlier, adapting to the people you lead. So really thinking about what does she need? Like, how does she want to be communicated with? We have one question that's become one of my favorites that we tell people, to ask the people you're leading, hey, what's the most important thing I need to know about leading you? Inviting
Mm,
that conversation and
that's a great question.
it is, and with so many leaders, like we have leaders that have been leading 25 years. Like, I've never really thought about asking that question. Like, what? And it could
Right.
be, hey, you need to know that I'm a single mom, and it is kind of hard for me to get here on times at certain mornings, and if I could have a little grace with that, or you need to know, like, we had one young woman. She was her name was Hannah in our course, and we were talking about this. We were actually talking about that Parks and Rec clip I just mentioned. And in the break, she started telling me that she had a particular employee, and I think she ran just a small like clinic that did some neurostimulation on your brain for certain mental health things. And um, she said she had one employee that did not like change, and just it could be like we're changing the time of our meetings, and she did not react well to that.
Had some of those.
Yeah, and so she started sending her what the change announcements like the day before they were going to have their team meeting so that
If she
person
could
would
prepare.
know, yeah, she could prepare and so
That's awesome.
it wouldn't hijack the meetings. And this is what I loved about Hannah. I was like, wow, I think she was 30 and I was just blown away by her leadership wisdom at that age.
Right.
And she said she went to college to become a special ed teacher, and she'd actually done special education for a few years before she moved into the corporate world. And in special education, everything's focused on knowing the individual needs of all your students. And she basically just carried that into her role as a leader at this corporate job. Uh,
Right.
thought that was so cool. So I just think this combo of knowing your core values and then adapting, and then my final like big piece of advice would just be reflect on your experiences. And whether that's with a coach like you or
Yeah.
whether it's through journaling or you just think about it when you're on your drive home. Think about what went well today and what didn't, but constantly just, it's a never-ending journey. I have a buddy who's in his 50s and been incredibly successful. And a phrase he used with me recently, he said, hey, like we're all unfinished leaders. And I thought that was really
Wow.
cool, like really cool.
Yeah, because there really is no end when you're leading
No,
people. Like I was always shocked at things that would happen, and I'd be like, I've been doing this over 20 years and I've never had that happen before, or I
Yeah,
didn't know that could happen.
for
Or,
sure.
always challenges with different people for different reasons.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So what conflict is a big thing that we deal with. Do you have any
Mhm.
philosophies on that? Like conflict with employees, conflict with people that you're like clients or people that you're waiting on? Do you have any favorite things
Yeah,
to say about
that's a
that?
good.
I know it's a big topic, but
No, it puts it in two different perspectives, like people that you're waiting on. Like that's probably been me when I'm a customer. So yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, one thing I read recently, it's very small. I ended up putting it in the book. I saw it on LinkedIn, and I unfortunately don't remember who it was just somebody's post.
right,
In the book, I said, this isn't my idea, but I don't know who to attribute to. But
right. But
it was
you
like,
used it.
yeah, but I didn't want to take credit
It
for it.
stuck with you. I know
Yes,
it's hard sometimes because I'll remember something, but I won't remember where I read it or saw it.
exactly. Yeah, but it said clarity of expectations is a much more valuable tool than clarity of correction. And so a
Mm,
lot of it was just, especially with your employees, making it clear up
right,
front, like what I expect about certain things.
right,
Now, I brought this up when we were teaching, and someone said, "Well, some people don't see it as an expectation to be on time to work. Like, do I have to clarify everything?" And it does. Leadership's hard. Like, it just gets tricky.
sure,
Mhm.
yeah,
But I think that is one thing. A lot of conflict comes out of just a lack of clarity
yes.
about, about if
So it's
you're,
all communication, over
yeah,
communicating almost what you expect from the
absolutely.
employees and even
Yeah.
with the clients sometimes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think with clients, like a lot of the things I think I've ended up being frustrated about with this service or this service is, well, how long it's going to take, or you told me to be here and now I sat here for an hour and a half. And
right,
some of those things are hard to avoid, but often you don't have people coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm really sorry this happened. Like we will try to fix it, but thank you for
right,
your patience." Just, I think we're all pretty forgiving when people communicate with us, but it's when you're sitting there and assuming the worst that conflict brews.
right, right. Yeah. And I think sometimes, and you can tell me what you think about this, but sometimes just being open to hearing the problems, right? Like even
Yeah,
with the people that you're leading, being open to them telling you, giving you feedback on your leadership.
absolutely. I mean,
Because sometimes
for sure.
sometimes you do things wrong, but you have to hear it, right?
Yeah, and that can be hard. It can hurt, but I think it's actually kind of the topic of the previous book we did 10 years ago, which was called Say Anything, and then the title was later changed to Permission to Speak Freely. But it's about this idea that when you're the leader, your people should be able to say anything to you. One on one should be trusting to be able to say, "Hey, this is frustrating me or getting in my way."
Right.
Your willingness to listen to that will be remembered when later on you're having to tell them something, or hey, we've worked through, I know I can trust you so we can talk openly.
Yeah. Well, leadership is hard for a lot of people. Like I said, I coach a lot of people and some of them really struggle with leadership because there is so much responsibility on you, but also things are so different. You're oftentimes winging it, you
Yeah,
know?
no, for sure. Yeah, yep. And like you said, and then a new situation comes up with a new personality, and you've never done this before, even when you're. That's why it's hard you just can't teach it in like 7 steps, right? It requires this constant process of reflection, growing, and just humility.
Right. But do you think that people are natural leaders, or do you think that it's a skill that can be learned?
Yeah, it's absolutely a skill that can be learned. I mean, I think there's a little bit of both. There are some people who just, they have this inner confidence or whatever that it's
Or
easier for them.
charisma, or
Yeah,
yeah,
right. I mean, I've run into people who they're just funny and they're likable, and so it's just a little easier for them to influence other people, or they have a
right.
positive perspective or just a great attitude. I mean, we all bring ourselves to the table, but
Yeah.
100% it's like a skill that can be learned, and it goes back to the definition that I said. You're a leader if people are following you. I mean, if you are a parent, you're a leader. If you're a veterinarian, you're a leader. Like it's
Right,
almost unavoidable. It doesn't mean you're a good leader, and I think we use the word leader in moral terms a lot.
right,
Like
right,
a leader is good, and it's not really the way it is. We all have leadership. almost all of us have some sort of leadership responsibility uh,
Right.
that it would be helpful to try to get better at.
Sure. I love that. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have that we're missing?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. It's been a great conversation. I do say, like I said, this is the fourth book I've been part of. We actually are giving all the proceeds of the book to the Tunnel to Tower Foundation, like all of
Oh,
them.
I
We're
love that
not,
organization.
yeah, it's a great organization supporting
That's
first
awesome.
responders and families of veterans who lost their lives. And the reason for that is it's just my personality. I don't like to go pitch stuff. It's just something I've dealt with my whole life. I'm not a good salesperson. I
Yeah.
wanted to be unencumbered because I really believe in this book. It's a quick
Yeah.
read, it's 150 pages or something. The audio book is 4 hours. But I really believe it can change people's interactions with others and is helpful for most anybody. So we're doing that. Like if you buy a copy, or the proceeds that don't go to Amazon are going to go to Tunnel to Towers, and I did that on purpose. So that's one thing. And then we have a website, buildingordiminishing.com, that gives some more information about the book. And we actually have a leader conference that we put on a couple times a year for people. It's not very expensive. It's just a 2 day thing. We're doing it in Cleveland, actually, September
Oh,
23rd,
cool.
24th.
I would love
That
that.
Yeah, like I think it's we get a mix. We did one earlier this year and had a mix of all kinds of people from we had an emergency ER surgeon, and we had people that youth group leaders, like 30-year-old youth group leader, 55-year-old emergency surgeon, like all over the map. And it's kind of what you said. Like if you're a new leader, where do I
How
start
do
and
we
where do
get
I
going?
go?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because it is. It's a daunting thing sometimes for people. If they
Totally.
don't have that kind of personality where they like to drive and,
Yeah.
if they're kind of like, "Oh, I never knew I had to lead," that they need a little bit a place to start. So, where do they find out about the conference? Is there like a website? Is it the
Yeah. Yeah.
Building or Diminishing, or is there
If you go
another
to
name?
buildingordiminishing.com, I
Okay.
actually have a link to our group, the referent group. So it's thereferentgroup.com, as well as where the actual landing page for the conference is. But if you went to the book's website, you could get there as well.
Okay. I love it. I could keep asking you a lot of questions, but then I'd keep you here all day. So I can't
Oh,
really do that, but I do appreciate what you're teaching. And I love the thing I'm gonna take away is that whole idea, am I building or am I diminishing? I think that's
yeah.
pretty genius.
Well, I think it's funny. It's a simple question, but I think what really helped me to get to the point of writing a book about it is it's changed me. Doesn't mean it'll change everybody, but it really did have an impact in my life. I feel like I mean, Julie, yeah, I feel like I'm a better parent to adult kids, a better
Right.
coach, even a better husband. Like, I mean, my wife jokes with me sometimes, like, "Oh, you just diminish me," I am this or
He calls
that.
you out, right?
Yeah, she calls me out, right? Like, which is fine.
I love that.
But yeah, it's sort of changed how I operate, and I think I'm better for it. So I was just trying to share
Yeah.
that
It's
in a
like,
humble way. Yeah,
are you adding to people or are you taking away? I love that. It's a
yeah.
really, really good idea. So I
Thank
love
you.
the name of the book. Okay, everybody. So the book is Building or Diminishing, and there's other books as well, which I'm assuming we can find if we find this one.
Yep.
And I I've had a great time talking to you. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, thanks for having me, Julie. I
All right.
appreciate it, and
All
thanks to
right,
your listeners.
all you
All those.
veterinarians out there, go ahead, say what you were gonna say.
I was gonna say thanks to all the veterinarians who do take care of our
They're
pets.
good
Because
people.
yeah, and I actually I don't I was with a veterinarian 5 or 6 years ago, or a person that was going through vet school and was explaining to me just how demanding it is, how hard it is to get into, and
Tough.
what kind of a grueling process it was even to get through it. And it's a tough,
Mhm.
stressful, and sometimes demanding job. And so thank you to everyone who's
Yeah,
doing
but we can all benefit from your advice about our leadership.
it. Yeah.
All right, everybody, this is Doug Crandall, and the book is Building or Diminishing. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking to us today.
Thanks for
It's
having
been
me,
great
Julie.
to talk to you. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye. Bye, Doug.